morning, everyone. Welcome to the first of our new series of executive dialogues with Trilegal. I'm very pleased to welcome two very well-regarded general counsels from the Delhi market. Mr. Sameer Chugh, who's the General Counsel for Games 24/7, and Anurag Sharma, who's the General Counsel for MakeMyTrip. I'll start with you, Sameer. So, how has your career shaped and what led to different choices? What do you think? Can you give us an overview just to start off?
Good morning to everybody. Pleasure to be here. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, to be very honest, when I was in the law college. I was still toying between, practice. I'd seen, the likes of Ram Jethmalani, Nani Palkiwala. I mean, the world was like, oh, you got to be this big lawyer in the court arguing like mad. Started as a criminal lawyer. My senior actually fired me in 6 months. This is the reality. He actually called and he said ki, beta tere bas ki nahi hai. I was like, okay, now what? So he said, तू एक काम कर, तू civil काम कर, शायद वहाँ ठीक रहेगा. I said, ठीक है sir, यही करते हैं. So I ended up doing a lot of civil litigation. I think was okay because he didn't fire me after 6 months. He still continued with me. Till I moved to a law firm and then ended up working with, kind of the likes of Singhania and then of course Kochar later, brief stint in JB Dadachandji as well. And I think that's what changed my thought process. And when I say that changed my thought process, because working with the likes of, DC Singhania and JBD, and then you look at, Rohit also to that extent, because he was very dynamic. He was pretty much young, same, just a few years apart, but very dynamic to say, let's go get something. Yeah. So private practice was great. I think, those hours were coming in. Those times there were very few law firms, not many. 2,000 hours in a month used to be like, if you've achieved that, the firm had a party. Ki, this is it, man, amazing, you made the world. Fortunately for me, I used to do about 10 to 14% of that. Because that is all that I did, work. So it was great stuff, and I think amazing learning, great time in a law firm. Till after about 5-6 years, I moved in-house. Again, by chance, a client said, ki, come back and, there's a friend of mine who's looking for a general counsel. I think you'll be good, why don't you talk to him? Like, really, that's not what I want to do. Anyway, he came, met, offered me a job, joined, and it's been, 24 years now. So now been in-house, except for that year stint that I went back to private practice. Basically, to test out and say, so going back to it, so worked with NCR, set up their office, worked with British Telecom, set up their office, moved to the UK, did transactions across the world, and it has been a fantastic thing. So the one thing that was certain, and the grass is always greener on the other side, why I say that is, in the law firm, we always thought in-house is great work-life balance. In-house, I always think law firm is great, work-life balance. I don't think there is work-life balance anywhere. Like we were talking earlier, if you want work-life balance, don't do law. Then if you're a lawyer and you want to do good law, then you don't get work-life balance. Sorry, go find something else. Yeah. Become a writer. You'll have enough work-life balance in life. So in-house, amazing this thing till, kind of did Bharti, and then after Bharti, when I decided to say, got to do something different, I went back to the law firm, did about a year. Very different, yeah. I think I wasn't sure whether I was cut out for that or not, but the biggest challenge, this is big pressure on you guys. To get business is not easy. To do business is easier than get business, I realize, yeah. And then so post that back in-house, I said, this is where I belong, this is what I can do. But I think that's been the career journey. And I think the biggest thing that I realize is that law firm and in-house, I think the difference is that in a law firm, you do a lot of law and you support the business and you understand the business and support them better. In-house, you do a lot of business and you know the law, and therefore you tell him how the business can continue. That's how I see it.
Anurag, if I was to put the same question to you, we've been friends for a long period of time, and you were from the litigation team and I was from the corporate team, and we lost all partners. So all of a sudden there were senior associates running mandates to setting up their London office and then coming in and working with household brands like Abbott, Biocon, Ola, and now MakeMyTrip. But what's been your journey like?
So see, my journey, a lot of similarity between Sameer's journey and mine. I think we come from a generation where if you didn't have anybody in your family who was in the law profession, you were never encouraged to be lawyers. So growing up, I don't think any of us were lawyers in those days, especially if we came from that, if nobody was in the family was a lawyer. So very similar journey to what Sameer said. I started off wanting to be a litigator. I did litigation for about 5-6 years, and then I joined a law firm. And gradually, I think, see, I had plans for myself, but I think life had other plans, and I think life had better plans than the plans that I had for myself. See, because when you think of, okay, in-house versus law firm, generally you don't even have the full picture. Nobody has the full information about what it entails to be an in-house lawyer or what it takes to be in a law firm. I mean, when you are graduating, when you're doing law, I don't think you have that kind of information. Only once you get into it, you start getting information. And then there are situations before you where you have to take decisions, career decisions, and you choose the better options. Evaluating it at that stage, what's better for me. So various people go in-house for various reasons. Some might go to in-house, say for example, if they think that their growth is not happening within the law firm, and sometimes they do very well in-house, and they might not be that successful in a law firm, and vice versa. I think people going from law firms in-house is a much more stronger trend than the other way around. I mean, Sameer went back to a law firm. I think he's one of the rare cases. Once people come in-house, I think they hardly go back, because I do think that getting work is a tough job, and a lot of work in law firm involves getting work. It's like running a business. One of my mentors, when I was joining in-house, he just made a statement, and it always stuck with me, that now you're going in-house, don't think of yourself as a lawyer. You are a business executive, and legal is your skill, like a technical guy has technical skills, a marketing guy has marketing skills. Now legal is your skill set, but you are a business executive. Think of the business first, how to solve whatever problem that is in front of you from a legal perspective. As the technical guy, I would try to do it from a technical perspective, or a marketing guy will try to solve it from a marketing perspective. If you keep thinking as a lawyer too much, I mean, I'm just making it too black and white, but yes, if you think too much like a law firm lawyer or lawyer who's outside the firm, you will probably not be able to build the relations that you need to build in-house with the business leaders. Probably you'll be seen as somebody, if they come to you with a problem, you will generally say no, or your first instinct will be to say no. So I think that is a very big transition that you have to make. But I think otherwise, both careers are fine. Both have very good tracks. I've enjoyed my time everywhere. In fact, when I moved from law firm to in-house, I thought it will be boring. My first thought was that it's probably going to be very boring being in-house. But I think I did a lot of exciting stuff in-house as well. Because in-house, you get to do a very broad spectrum of things. See, when you are in a law firm, you get stuck to your own field sometimes. Corporate litigation is a broader distinction, but still within corporate and within litigation also you will get stuck to a particular type of litigation, say competition law or whatever you are doing. But when you are in-house, you get to do a lot of other things. You are handling a competition matter at the same time, then you are also handling maybe an acquisition, maybe a partnership, you are working on a contract also, so it keeps things interesting. So that's what I'd say. But I would say nothing is as per plan. You have to take the best decision under the given circumstances, and that's how I would see my career also.
I think one thing that is very clearly emerging, and this is, I think we talk a lot with our teams as well, is that you have to be very commercial. If you are getting too excited about negotiating an indemnity process and all that, you are done. If that is something that gets stuck on, that's fine. You need to have some risk allocation, but you have to be very commercial. You know, we have people like Amit in the audience. I've been on negotiations with him being on the other side, where he's told his client that, you know what, you don't know what you're asking for. Let's go out of the room and I'll tell you, right? So that commercial sense is clearly a very, very important aspect of being an effective lawyer. But just taking that forward, how do, like, as a career advancement tool, right, in your careers, what key things have come out, has stood out as things that have really helped you go to the next stage? I know adaptability is a big concern, but a big part of that, just being able to adapt to different things. But what all are your thoughts on that, especially from an in-house career perspective as well?
So I'll tell you, adaptability, absolutely, because you got to keep adapting to situations. But I think, the two things to start with that I always think, has helped is inquisitiveness and the ability to learn. Because what happens is that if you go in saying that I know everything and I'll tell you, I think that is the biggest mistake anybody can make. The reality is that no matter how good a lawyer you are, right, you'll have experience. No doubt you'll have experience, but not necessarily you know exactly what's happening there. So it's also about learning and, kind of really being inquisitive. So unless you know or you clearly have an idea of what's happening, how will you even apply your mind? That's one. The other piece is, kind of while we talk about the fact about you got to look at it commercially, all of that is fine. You got to know who you're working for. Yeah. See, because now having worked with American MNCs and British MNCs and Indian bosses and Indian bosses and Indian MNCs, I realize that everybody is different, everybody is unique, and the role that you're doing over there is really, they depend on you. At the end of the day, when they make you sit in that room, they are looking for you to give them answers, not necessarily legal answers. Sometimes even just confirmations from a simple, kind of saying, am I thinking right? Am I saying this right? Do you agree with it broadly? And so therefore there is one logic that I follow is, if it is logical, it will be legal. So let's not worry about reading what the law said first. We'll read it. But if the point is logical, legally it will sustain itself. You have two options, either legally it will be written or you'll be able to prove it legally right. Yeah, no problem there. So go with the logic. Be inquisitive, ask questions, learn, and then you'll be able to come up with answers. Nobody comes up with answers just sitting there, and nobody knows all answers. I don't think any negotiation that I've ever attended, I have been any less nervous than I was the first time, even today. Because even now I'm thinking, okay, what next? What is the googly that's coming my way? And therefore, if you're thinking like that, you'll be able to anticipate more things. Big mistake I've seen people end up doing is they'll walk in saying, dekh lenge isko. Because you don't know how the guy is coming prepared in front of you. So when you say dekh lenge, he's saying, okay, come piece of meat, let me eat you first and then I'll talk to you later. I think that's where it is. And also that changes how internally people will look at you. Because if you are turning it in a negotiation, going there unprepared, and then you're getting really whacked there, internal people are saying, "Ise piche karo yaar." Is that what you want to be? So to me, what is logic or what is logically correct will legally be right. Understand it better, ask questions, keep learning, and things work.
As a law firm primarily of first generation lawyers, one of the things that we say a lot many times, and even the senior most partners would say that, is that when a big memo is going out or a big document is going out for a multi-billion-dollar deal, there's a churn in the stomach. I think what you are saying very much resonates with that. Anurag, you also worked in Myanmar and then worked for the Myanmar fund, working out of New York as well, with a 13-hour time difference with your boss. So when you moved there, what were the things that really helped you in your career?
See, the thing is, what I'll say is that when I moved from Myanmar to New York, and obviously the time difference was there, but see, building a rapport is very important. Building a rapport with your boss is very important. Building the rapport with your people who you work with is very important. Then, in many ways, the 13-hour time difference worked for us, because my boss used to work on a document, he used to send it to me, and by the time he was awake, I had worked on the document, I used to send him back. So in a way, we were working, when a deal was happening, we were working 24 hours. So that, in that sense, sometimes it was very, very helpful also in that sense. So I think, see, behavioral skills are very important. How to say no to your bosses if you have to say no. That is the most strategic thing to learn. How to say no to your boss or to your business or to your partner, legally you cannot point blank say no sometimes. See,
When he says boss, he's saying clients in the law firms.
yes, yeah. So you have to be very strategic about how you say no. You take him around the process. I think ultimately you have to make them realize that it's a no, that it can't happen. And if you work with them through the problem, they will know. And that builds the most trust. Right? And that works for you in, I think maybe that's true for a law firm, that's true for in-house, that's true for long distance. And I think I don't believe in too much expertise, especially if you're on the in-house field. If you have a good legal acumen, good legal attitude, any subject you can learn. See, because we have practiced in the Supreme Court for 2-3 years. Supreme Court, when the first brief comes to you, and I'm talking about all the expert lawyers, there are subjects on which they have done no work in the past. And within a couple of weeks, they would be arguing on it for 3 days. Preparing a brief and arguing it for 3 days. Supreme Court, that happens all the time. They are not subject matter experts. They go through whatever the High Court judgment is, go through the proceedings, learn the law. Within 2 weeks, they are experts. And they know whatever case law is there on that subject. So sectors, yes, specialization does help. And to the young lawyers who are there, I would just say one thing, that whatever you are doing, at least become absolute best in terms of legal skills that you are learning. If you're doing an M&A deal, become a very good M&A deal lawyer. If you're a litigator, make the maximum use of the experience you are getting right now in terms of your legal skills, because that is really going to help you 10 years down the line. Right now, I think, and maybe Sameer will agree with me, the biggest advantage we have, because we have been litigators, we have been with law firms, so we know where law firms are coming from. We also know where litigators are coming from. So generally, if we have a strategy in mind, there is no new problem for us anymore. Generally, 90% of the problems that come to us is something that we have handled in the past. In the internet space, I think some of that has changed because a lot of new things keep happening. And sometimes the call also is that whether I should go with this question to a law firm or not, especially if you're in the tech space. That is a question that you will have to evaluate a lot of times, that whether I go with this question to a law firm. Because see, I know you all guys work for a law firm, but law firms will generally be a bit conservative about things because they also want to protect themselves. They will give you all the options. You will have to build your own argument because nobody understands the business better than you. So yeah, you can build if you go very technically, you might call it sale of electricity also. But over a period of time, we worked with some law firm partners also, and we developed an argument in terms of how it is not a sale of electricity and how it should be governed. But those things become important. I think 2 things I'll say if you just want to highlight. One is be the absolute best, learn your legal skills very well. First 7-8 years are very important in that. That will help you that'll serve you very well as an in-house counsel in later periods of time. And second is behavioral. You have to understand it's managing your boss and your work relationships is the same as managing your personal relationships. They're as complicated and you have to use all your brains to manage it. You can't be knee-jerk about it.
I think some absolute gems from both of you. I'm glad this is being recorded because I would have failed to take appropriate notes there. One thing that I see in everything that you say is about curiosity, about doing the right things right, the basics right. But I also sense a huge sense of confidence and positivity in both of you in terms of when you talk about a problem and a issue, right? And I've talked about this to some of my friends and even a coach that I used, that the difference between stress and excitement is they're actually very close cousins, right? And you can get stressful. I could have gotten stressful about starting a new dialogue series today. What if traffic was there? What if you got caught or whatever? And the excitement is about doing something new that somebody else may not have done, right? Can you elaborate if that is a thought process that you also sink in with? How do you look at that?
So no, absolutely. Yeah. At the end of the day, remember, if you're positive, things will be positive. You become negative, you've lost half the battle. That's something that I sincerely believe. And the other thing is know your limitation. When I say know your limitation means I don't have all answers in my life here. I mean, that's the reality. So when somebody will probably look at me, and I've seen this a lot of kids, I was kind of doing one lecture for some kids there. So they actually said, how do you, look everything so positively? So the fact remains that, but at the back end, I know one thing for sure. Everything has an answer, everything has a solution. I may not have it right there. Some, I will know the answer. Some, I know where to get the answers from. So either which way, answer to aa jayega. If we are clear that I can get the answer and I know we'll solve it, there's a solution to it, then why do you even have to worry? In any case, when you worry, what are you doing? You're actually putting half your brain out. Because your brain is now not looking at the solution side, it's looking at what can go wrong. And the moment you go down that path of what can go wrong, trust me, it'll go wrong. It's about manifesting, right? You manifest what can go wrong, wo aayega aapke samne. You manifest the positive side, you'll come up. So I think the other piece is that and there's a bit of a difference here where when you look at, you're doing it where you are going to be also responsible tomorrow, right? So big difference between in-house and law firm. And I will say this here because in a law firm, you're far more protected. Yeah. When I say far more protected, because you will give an advice as a general counsel, ultimately he will be the one standing in the line of fire at first. But as a general counsel, you are standing there knowing fully well कि अगर आज आपने कुछ कर भी दिया और गलत हो गया, तो कल सुबेरे आपका फाउंडर आपको आकर के एक बारी कमरे में बोलेगा बेटे क्या कर रहे थे तुम. अब now that is a thing that you don't want. So again, the thing being, therefore you will turn around and do whatever is the best. And if you are positive, and it's okay to also admit sometimes that I don't know this part. That's where it comes, but let's find out, and I know who can help us here. So either which way, positivity is the only way you go forward. Anything negative will only take you back. Yes, do you want to be cautious? Being cautious is not negative, is how I would put it. You be cautious, but at the end of the day, positivity has to be there because that's how you will get positive results. Somebody who's not got the right attitude, I think that would be a big red flag for me. So I would say attitude. The second thing is intent. See, if somebody's got the intent, the right attitude will follow the intent as well, because then they will want to learn. It's okay you wouldn't have done it. I mean, none of us, right? And I can say this for everybody across, nobody learned and came to this world, right? You came in and started learning. As a kid also, you started to learn walking, you learned all of that. You learned how to write. I mean, these are skills that you learn, but I think it's the attitude. There are people who will have the great attitude. A person with a great attitude will find a way to get there. But a person with a bad attitude will be a bit of a challenge. And the bigger issue that I see with people like that is they'll drain you down as well. So look at the attitude. If the person's great attitude, the person's willing to learn, the person's willing to put in the work and hard work. I mean, because reality is nothing comes easy. And the one other piece that today I think that's something that I've added is the ability to read. Unfortunately, in today's world, people just don't read. I have seen and I've struggled where, people will glance through it, and when Google just gives out something, that becomes the gospel truth. Now, that's a bad idea. So reading is another important thing.
When we talk about positive attitude, wanting to put in the hours and all that, I think I can safely say that we are very blessed to have people with the right attitude and the right sort of focus join in. But at some point, I think we need to also talk about the consistent, long path running up to partnership. And I can tell you that there are younger partners also in the audience who can tell you that it doesn't stop there, right? Unfortunately. But there is this whole thing about burnout, about being stressed out for long periods of time. What are the things that people can do to sort of really address that? It is a reality of a profession, but the other reality is also that people need to be more focused on mental health. I think this is a much more tougher, even though with all the phones and all that. I think life was easier when we didn't have Blackberries. You had to go to the office, you first have a coffee, then you would fight for the dial-up password. Then when that thing started, that's when the emails started trickling. These people wake up with the emails, right? And some of them have bosses who wake up at 5:30 a.m. and start work, right? So there is also some to-do things coming up as well. So what things can people do, especially people who are in their mid-careers?
I mean, the first thing is don't stress. Yeah, life's not that tough. I mean, to be very honest, and there is always things that will happen. So you got to prove yourself is okay, but don't prove yourself at the cost of your life. That I'm very clear on, irrespective. Because at the end of the day, see, jaan hai to jahan hai. If you are really going to burn out, anyway, you won't be able to do what you're supposed to do. So I would say, one, don't take stress. There is nothing in this world that really needs to give you stress. Yeah. Everything again goes back to the thing, there's a solution to everything. क्या होगा ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा? नौकरी जाएगी ना यार. और भी हैं. मतलब, what is the issue there? There are enough jobs in this world. There is enough work in this world for people to do. Given the fact that the world is expanding like crazy, the avenues are expanding like crazy, there are so many things. So there is always an opportunity that is out there. One closed door is not necessarily the close of your life and everything. One closed door will open 50 others, so don't worry on it. Question of timing, but again, by stressing, you won't change it. Secondly, I think, it's not a bad idea to turn around and agree to some boundaries. Plus, you don't have to take it on you to say ki, oh, if my boss gets up at 5:30, it is my obligation to respond at 6 o'clock. You don't need to, yeah, it's okay. If you get up at 8:30, by all means, as long as we've agreed a timeline and you'll come back to me, that's fine, take your time, yeah. I'm not going to expect you to get up. I mean, people get up, I'll say this, I'm a very early riser. I get up at about 4 in the morning. And I do send emails also in the morning, but I have made it very clear, please don't respond. In fact, if somebody is obligated to respond, I'm saying I'm going to fire you tomorrow. I don't want you burning out. Yeah? It's okay. Matlab, meri aadat hai, just because I'm a madman doesn't mean you have to be mad. Yeah? So don't take stress on that and agree to those boundaries. Everything has a solution. Everything has an opportunity. Don't worry. That's the way I would put it.
I think the second part of what you said also is, I think, very important. One is the reality that you cannot stress out too much. The other reality is you can say no stress out, but there are timelines, there are deadlines, there are documents to be turned, new things to be read, and unfortunately, you got to get it right every time, right? There are no passing marks in the law firm atmosphere, and neither is it in-house, right? There are no passing marks. You either get 10 or you are a failure, right? Now, but in that what you said also was about enabling those conversations, right? Being out there, going and seeking time, asking, I need to have a discussion around something like this. I think that is also a very big challenge, especially I think in a law firm atmosphere where, and I think it's the same with senior leaders like yourselves and in-house as well. People might think that they are so busy. Would they have time to talk to me about the fact that, in the morning I need to walk my dog and the dog is acting very funny, so I need to spend some time with him or her before I actually start work, right? But it's only one conversation away, right? Right? Do you sort of agree with that?
Can I add one more thing here? I want to share this. This is a real life incident that happened with me. So, having worked with MNCs, I've seen a situation where, you have that so-called work-life balance because it's mandated on you. That's fine, it's nice, but sometimes, it gets worse because you're saying, yeah, kaam karne to somebody wants to. So I kind of used to work in a MNC. And then from an MNC, I moved to an Indian company. So MNC was like, you were mandated, if you are going on leave, you have to put an out of office. And if you are answering emails while you're on leave, you were actually hauled up saying, why are you working? Like, okay, I won't work. I moved to an Indian company, and I'm not naming the company. I went on leave. I put an out of office. 6:30, I got a call from the boss. We don't put out of office here. I'm like, oops, sorry, I didn't realize that. Yeah. So he says, at your level, you're supposed to be available all the time. We don't do out of offices. So first thing I did was call my secretary saying, out of office hata de yaar. Naukri jayegi warna. So actually we took that off. So that is how it worked, and and got used to it. Their timings were like whenever they called, whatever was the thing. Moved back to a MNC. So working, sending out emails in the morning. My global GC calls me on a Monday morning saying, stop sending emails on a weekend. Like, now what? He says, we don't do this here because you're putting pressure on people. Yeah. Like, चाहते क्या हो यार? कोई कुछ कह रहा है. But I realize every company will have its culture. Follow the culture, but at the end of the day, even when I didn't put an out of office and I didn't respond for a few hours or 10 hours, I think nobody bothered. Even when I sent out emails and then turned around and put them as go out on Monday morning, nobody bothered. Yeah. So I think every company has a culture, and at the end of the day, you got to figure out how you fit yourself into that culture and how you put your culture out there. Yeah. So I mean, this is real life incidents where I've seen with myself. You've got both sides. I mean, there's no right or wrong, but that's the world.
I think there are both aspects. See, there are certain things that you can do yourself, and the certain things organization also has to do, right? So organizations have to also change in a particular way. Many have, some haven't yet. So there are places, I mean, to say that, okay, because you are stressing, it's on you, is also not the right approach. There are certain organizations, there are certain bosses who might be toxic. It's possible. I mean, you can end up in that kind of a situation. But I think you have to tell yourself that this is not permanent, right? See, I now have experience of around 23, 24 years. And I have seen with colleagues, with friends who have had very bad relationship with their bosses, who have lost their jobs also, but all of them have landed on feet. I know of no single instance where somebody had a conflict with their boss or with their job and didn't want to do they might have struggled for some time, but everybody lands on their feet. I don't know a single instance where that has not happened. So people need to think everything is long term. Right now you're in that moment, it's maybe you think that it's very important for you, but life goes on. It's a long-term thing. Everything passes. If I say myself, see, the things that actually, bad things that happened in my life were things that I never stressed about. And when they happen, only then you come to know, because they happen suddenly. And most of the things that I stressed about have never really translated into anything stressful. I think that happens to most people. So I think that is but everybody will go through their own journey, I think. So that I think, but from an organization perspective, Yogesh, because Trilegal, I think, has this open culture, you can talk, but some organizations might not. So in MakeMyTrip, we have very flexible working hours. You can speak to your bosses, you can work from home. I have a couple of members of team who work from home only. And there are, I mean, today, if you go out and look for talent, even the candidates demand that. If you go to Bangalore and try to hire an in-house lawyer, if you ask them to come to office, sometimes that, okay, you can come, maybe you can come twice a week. That is a problem for some candidates. And I respect them for that choice. Okay, whatever. That might create difficulty. I think that, see, coming to office, at least to build a rapport with the business, sometimes could be important, right? Because if nobody has seen you, nobody has met you, then they might not reach out to you. So coming sometimes to the office builds that, but that happens a lot. Even good offers, people are rejecting, because if you ask them to come to office every day, then that's a big no-no for many people.
Yeah. No, interestingly, just this morning, I think on the front page of Times of India, there is this big global study which has been reported that actually people are happier working from office in certain settings. But it could be a culmination of multiple factors as well, right? I think, but this is an interesting topic, and I'm sure people would be very interested in this. See, there is this work from home, which I think, at least as senior leaders, I have seen senior leaders working from everywhere, from airport lounges to the security lines. So people have always been used to. I think the acceptance that even at a more junior level, that thing can happen is in my view, a great aspect. I think what we probably need to talk about and hear your thoughts is when work from home becomes work from Goa, right? How do people deal with that? Like, how are your organization? You said that you've been very open to the whole idea, and I think it's also a question of what kind of people and skill sets you are looking for. But does it impact engagement with the organization, or is it par for course? We feel that some level of engagement is very important. We know that office is not a workplace, but office is a place for a melting pot of various cultures, people coming in, getting to know each other, engaging, learning, developing personalities, and learning from this concept of osmosis, right? Nobody would ever know how my boss prepares for a meeting when the only time they have is a 3 hour. When they get a call at 2 p.m. from somebody who says, 5 p.m. I want you to do this presentation. How does the person go? Does he run to Manupatra? Does he go to the physical library? Does he call up his friends? Does he just look at your own memos and all that? How do people deal with that? So what are your thoughts on that? Like generally, I think work from home is a reality. I think we have to accept it. But how? To what extent and what is a good use of it is, I think, probably what will be very interesting.
See, I think the world has changed. That's the reality. Earlier it was like work meant office, and then once you finish office, you basically go home, and then that was your personal life and that was your life that you did outside of office and whatever you did. COVID came in, COVID changed the way everybody thinks, and those lines kind of completely got blurred. But I'll tell you what, at least I am of the belief, and as organizations that I've worked for, and we've seen this, we've experimented. Today, I mean, we are a pure tech company. If you look at it, I mean, technically, we don't need to really meet each other to really do anything. But Zoom is there, etc. Despite that, we've now actually made it mandatory, saying, please come to office 3 days a week. And the reason for that purely is exactly this thing. At the end of the day, humans are social creatures, right? And you can't give that up. Because we've seen that people who are just sitting at home and working, eventually they start to actually be less productive. Why? Because what happens is now they're sitting in a certain environment which is very boxed and everything is just on a screen. Humans need interaction. Humans need the touch, the feel, the change in environment. I mean, let's look at it this way. How many of us, and I mean, I'll ask everybody, how many of you go to the same restaurant for eating in the last 3 years? Have you done that? You go there, second time you'll say, I don't want to go there, I've done that enough. That is the human part, where you will need change, you will need difference. If you're in the same setting, it will become so monotonous that you'll actually walk away from it. That's where a lot of the depression, that's where a lot of anxiety, all of that comes, because you're suddenly boxed. So we realize that people need, but at the same time, the reality is there that remote working is a given. People have personal needs, you have to respect it. I mean, we've seen this. I've had, for example, in my team, we had a person whose father was very unwell and she had to be there. We were like, absolutely fine. You want to go and spend 15 days there, do that, come back for a week, go back 15 days, we are okay. But I think the big piece there is saying that, is the person mature enough to turn around and actually deliver also? Human aspect is good, but at the end of the day, it can't be that, that's the only thing. You still have to work. And that is something that has to be a personal responsibility. That can't be, put into people, and that can't be forced on people. The way I would look at it is, if you are unable to do work at all, leave, go there. Maybe that's more important. And that is what you should be doing. Come back later, no issues. So you got to balance that out. And just working out of, absolutely I agree. It can't be I'm working out of Goa now forever. Doesn't work here.
Yeah. I think then I'll come to my questions just quickly on the trusted advisor. What is a trusted advisor for you?
So I'll tell you, see, trusted advisor for me would be somebody who's willing to understand my problem and apply mine, to be very honest. Because nobody really has a ready answer. And I don't expect somebody to give me a ready answer, because unless the person's understood, and I'm certain that the person understood all the nuances, I'm not even sure I'm getting the full advice. So to me, I would trust somebody who's looking at the aspects and giving me more practical advice than just a legal advice. If my lawyer is going to come and tell me legally ये कर सकते हो और legally ये गलत है, वो तो मुझे भी पता है. मुझे ये चाहिए, कोई आकर के मुझे बोलेगा कि यार ये भी इशू है, ये भी इशू है, ये तरीके भी हैं. That's the third part, which is the trusted advisor part. Because somebody who's willing to stick their neck out and say, this is practically we are saying it. And if challenged, should be able to stand with it. It's easy to give a suggestion, but are you willing to stand with it? And you will only gain the trust when you're willing to stand with it, because you would have then done a super rational on it to say, I mean, I still do this, and I learned this from Mr. Jethmalani himself in college. He used to come for lecture and I was the guy responsible to pick him from the airport and drop him and take him and all of that. So वहाँ पे गाड़ी में I has to ask him these questions. One of the things that he taught me and I do is that I ask questions till I think the other guy's run out of answers or I've run out of questions. If I've run out of questions, I need to change track. There's a different track, but I need to get the other guy to run out of questions. That's exactly what I want my trusted advisor to do. So that if I am asking questions, at the end of the day, he should say, now this is what it is because I've answered everything.
And many times those questions get the answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
To the ultimate problem as well.
Yeah, so I think, trusted advisor for me would be somebody who will add something to what I already know. Right? See, whatever perspective, it can just be a perspective. Whether you have seen it like this, whether you have seen it like that, who can help me think through the matter? Because sometimes you get stuck. Even with all whatever so who works on finding a solution rather than giving the traditional answers. Okay, we'll make a memo, we'll make an opinion note, whom you can suddenly call and bounce off an idea also. What do you think about this? You give me your instinctive answer, then we'll see what law is. So somebody who trust is built over a period of time, I think, and I think trust, the people who I would say have turned out to be the most trusted advisors for me are particularly who gave me slightly different solutions, right? Slightly different to slightly different problems. Because especially when now we are in the internet space, our problems are the kind of problems which haven't happened on the legal landscape. So you need to take tough calls, you need to take brave calls. So somebody who is willing to do that.
I'm really glad to hear that answer, because one thing that both of you have not said is that trusted advisor is not an available advisor. So nobody should think that trusted advisor means you got to pick the phone and the second ring every time, otherwise the call goes to somebody else and you lose the trust. It's actually more about what you bring to the table.
Correct.
Right?
See, in any case, if you are a trusted advisor and you are unable to pick, my thought will be somewhere stuck, he'll call back or she'll call back. Versus saying if he's not picking or she's not picking, they're not trusted. And that's not right. I trust them because I trust them for their ability, not their ability to pick up the phone. Yeah.
I think the last one is then on future trends, right? We've seen these really exciting new laws and all that, and you all are, there's one thing that law firm partners can be very envious of you, because you guys, probably not out of choice, but you have to learn everything that happens, right? We have these specialist teams who are saying, we will be doing this, and they'll probably be asking for their own rates and whatnot. Conversations around these specialist areas of law. Where do you think the law is going, and in terms of in-house versus law firm career paths, what are the interesting trends to watch out for?
So see, I think the world's changing, and I think today the world changes every day. We started off the various laws that you said. Even if you take things, we've seen different laws, companies act on. I mean, tech laws, right? I mean, that time there was no tech law. The only tech law we had is that, how do you dial the phone out and talk to clients? All those conference calls. I mean, that itself was a task, because you had to find the number, call it out. I mean, with all of the way the things are changing, I mean, AI coming in, there's now generative AI, we don't know what's coming next. I think the big challenge or the big piece that the future holds is the unknown. Now, you can never be prepared for the unknown, but what you can do is, kind of keep pace with it. You can never go beyond it, because you never know what's happening. Some things will come in and they'll drop off very quickly. I mean, that's another reality of this world today. A new technology comes and then it just kind of falls flat. Something else will come and it will kind of go a little more. But with the way today is, and kind of in some of the, we get a lot of these tech things, and I speak to a lot of lawyers across the world, the average age of anything new tech these days is just about 4.5 months. So actually in 4.5 months, it's already working on something else. There's already a new thing that's coming in. So how do you keep pace with that? At least I can tell you that across the world, whether you take it India, you take US, you take the most developed countries in the world, no legal system is being able to keep pace with it. So I think as lawyers, don't worry about it. I mean, I don't think any one of us can keep pace with the legal system with what's happening. What I think you can do is that keep yourself abreast with what's happening, how things are changing, and what it means for the human you, the person you, not necessarily the lawyer you. Because at the end of the day, if you are able to keep that in check, or at least understand, you can fit the current laws there, because that's what you will have to do each time. Because there are no new laws coming in, right? By the time the new laws come, things have changed. I mean, let's look at our simple thing about data protection and privacy. I mean, we don't even have the new law today. It's been in the anvil for a long time. But the way the world has changed, I mean, there's a judgment which says Aadhaar has to be masked. How many of us really mask that Aadhaar anymore? No, you don't even have that, sense of trying to do XXX space de do. Tab tak, I mean, it's just time is also money today and all of that. So I think keep updated with how things are going. See how it fits into your current legal system. And I think be the change in the sense that how will this develop? I think people like us have to do it. We will have to get out and start to talk about it, saying these are the changes we want. Of course, and I'm not even getting into this, is not a government session and all of that, so I don't want to get into how they need to step up their act, and that's not something that's in our control. But I think us to say how current laws will apply here, I think that's the piece I would really want to continuously be in connect with.
Yeah, so I would just say, see, obviously legal laws are evolving. Every day there are new laws that are being proposed, and you have to obviously keep abreast, but it is very difficult to be an expert in all of that. See, you need to be aware what's happening around you. You need to be aware of your business to be able to identify what might impact you more or what might not impact you more. But other than that, you need to understand the broader picture, as Sameer said, of what your business is and where the business is going and what might happen. And following international trends also helps, because India generally follows what happens outside. Till now it is quite true in terms of at least the regulatory framework. Either they'll follow the EU framework or they'll go for the US framework, but that's where they derive their inspiration from most of the time. So that is there. But I think, see, from a GC perspective, you need to understand the business again. It's the same thing. I always say legal strategy begins where law ends. Where law ends, then your legal strategy starts, because you have done with the law, you know the law. Now say what is to be done. How will you achieve what you need to achieve? So that's the way you have to think. AI is going to be a big disruptor. Most people are scared of it. I think even I might be scared of it. Younger people might be more scared of it, because see, they still have their whole careers ahead of it. But I think you need to confront it. You need to understand it. It is going to change the way things are done in all fields, medical, be it law, fields where we think that it's not possible, even art. It might change even that drastically. That's the level at which people are working on those things. So hiding away from it, at least for the youngsters, I mean, we might hide away from it, because we might, we are now reaching our 50s, we have 10 years to go, right? But for the youngsters, confront it, learn it, become a master of it. It is also going to become a big field in terms of law, at least for the next 10 to 15 years. So don't be scared of it. Oh, it's going to take my job away. Everybody feels that it's going to take their job away today. Even lawyers feel, right? And it might make certain roles redundant, but then you'll have to adapt and learn, like we have done. Everybody has done, right? I mean, law is not the same as it was 20 years back. There are fields of law which didn't exist when we passed out, including competition law, including many areas. So it will evolve. But learn it, confront it, anything new. I think you should, people who have below 10 years of practice, you have no choice. You have to obviously go inside it, be thorough with it. You should become an expert in it.
Thank you very much. I think I see ringing through this things like curiosity, positivity, confidence. I think it has been a great session. Could not have asked for a better start. And thank you for, I know you both are speaking, used to speaking at very high level panels with ministers listening in. But I think for us, this was very, very on the point and very relevant. So on behalf of everybody over here, thank you very much.
Thank you. Pleasure being here.